Hi and welcome to the third instalment of the Know Your Flow campaign, which is brought to you by the Warren Youth Project. Who are we talking to today, Lydia?
Today we're talking to Laura Shipp. She is a PhD student who's writing a PhD on Femme tech and period tracking apps. So she's going to talk to us a bit about them and how they may be using your data.
Cool, let's see it.
Cool. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name's Laura. I'm a PhD student at Royal Holloway, and I study period tracking apps, basically. So I look at particularly the security of them, but also how people are using them and how they kind of are changing people's relationships with their bodies. So today is going to be split into a few different sections. So we're going to talk a bit about period trackers, see what you all know about them, and what you think about them. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about some findings of my own research, and then ask your kind of thoughts on that. And yeah, just whether that's kind of what you expected or not. And then we're going to kind of end with thinking about how period trackers' privacy and security could be different. So it's going to be a kind of interactive session, and yeah, feel free to chat in the chat or as Elle said, just wherever in the thing. So yeah, cool. I'll start sharing my screen. I've got some slides to show you all. So yes, so I wanted to start by asking everyone here whether they have ever used a period tracking app, or have you ever used one? There's a poll for this, so you can fill it in.
Can everyone see the poll?
Yeah, it's working fine.
Cool.
So we've got 2 to 1. Okay, interesting. So again, feel free to answer this in any way you want to, but the next question is what role you kind of think they have in people's lives, and you can talk from your own experience or from a general experience about this.
I think they're like a good. I think people have enjoyed having an alternative to using like hormonal contraception. Although I've never used one, but I think that's kind of quite a positive thing to give people options. And as someone's put something in the chat as well.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I don't think I can see that. Can I see that from here? I don't think I can. Oh yeah. Help planning your day-to-day life. Yes, that's so true as well. So that's 2 quite different usage, but both really important.
I've never used one before, but I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and someone was saying that they use theirs to know how their mood is going to be. And actually they'd read a book called Period Power, which is a book that I've never read, but I've heard a lot about. And they were saying that they found it really interesting to use it, because then they found out that their productivity within their career. So they knew, like, the week before their period was not a good week to maybe edit, for example. They were a writer, but it was a good idea. It was a good time to brainstorm ideas. And then the week after their period, it was a good time to edit, which I found so interesting. So they're basically using the tracking app to plan their working life, because their hormone imbalance changed the way that they their productivity, which blows my mind.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Yeah, so another really different thing, but it can have a really big impact on your day-to-day life and how you do your work, which is obviously massive. Okay, any other thoughts, or it can be related to kind of what they do. No? Okay, cool. So my next question is whether you think they collect data, and if so, what kinds of data? I'm going to just check the chat for this one as well.
I've put the poll up again.
Ah, perfect. Yeah, I forgot about that one for a minute.
How do I see the poll? Do I have to click on poll?
It should just come up, I think, on your screen.
Oh, mine hasn't popped up.
I'm not, oops, sorry, spoilers. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it because of the, maybe as a host, but.
Okay, that's all right. I can just say, what was your question? I assume, well, I know they do collect data, but I was assuming it would be kind of the kind of generic things you put in, like your name, maybe your age.
Yeah.
That's I'm making it up, as I say, because I've not.
No. It's good to know though. Yeah. There's no real wrong answers. I'm just trying to get a sense of what you all think.
Yeah, I think they definitely collect all sorts of information.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, yeah. So we've got 2 yeses. Yeah, I mean, anyone else kind of think about what kinds of data maybe, or like, yeah, I guess like if you think about what you're inputting into the app or the way you might use it, can you think of anything that, I don't know, that you would be like, oh, maybe they collect that? Again, there's no wrong answers, but just trying to.
I wonder if they do for like advertising purposes. So if they know what products to advertise to you and things like that. I guess I'm always quite wary with apps and how clever they are.
Yeah.
And when stuff pops up on your screen that you think that's weird, that's there.
Yeah, how did they know that? Or and where do you think that kind of that feeling comes from? Do you know? Can you think of an example where you might, I don't know, where that might be coming from, or how you know about that kind of thing?
For me, it was probably about 5 years, no, probably more than that, like 5 or so years ago. And I was away and I was talking to my friend on FaceTime and she told me that she was pregnant. And then after the call, I went on Facebook and then all the adverts were like pregnancy related. And I remember I remember that being the first time that I thought there's a link there, and I'd never heard about it or discussed about it, and it seemed quite new, at the time. But I remember that really clearly being the first time thinking, there's something funny going on here.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's super interesting. I can think I can definitely think of those moments where you're like, how is this? How have these two things been connected? Really interesting.
And I think, is it Manoj? Sorry if I've said that wrong. I've said in the chat they can collect period related data, age, location, email, ID in some case.
Okay, brilliant. And where do you I guess, where have you kind of learned about that, or where did you find that out? Was it through your own research or anything like that? Give you a minute to type. Always takes a bit longer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think I've always been a bit scared of period tracking app. Just wow, okay, someone's typing. Because I listened to a podcast. I can't remember even what it was or who was talking on it, but God, that makes me sound like I listen to podcasts all the time, which I do. But I listened to one, and this woman was talking about how she used period tracking apps. She was struggling to get pregnant. She was using it for fertility purposes. She got pregnant, so that was like inputted into her app or the app knew that she had a period, so they assumed that she was pregnant. And then all of the ads started of baby products, and then she miscarried. But she hadn't told that, like, she didn't have a period, so her app still thought she was pregnant. So then she kept getting these sponsored ads, and that for her was a massive struggle. And I think that scared me, because I was like, that's absolutely mad that your phone can know that about you. Like, for example, where someone was getting sponsored ads, she completely just didn't realize that she'd missed her period, and she started getting loads of baby sponsored ads, and she then realized she was pregnant, and she was like, that actually means that my phone knew I was pregnant before I even knew. And I thought that was just mind-blowing, and I was like, oh, I don't want to use one, because I've got like a and I could use it on the Fitbit app, but that scared me a bit, I think.
Yeah, I got a bit of kind of fear of it now. Yeah, that's super interesting. So there is kind of like with them also, with these apps and all apps, kind of like knowing that something's going on but really not knowing what that is, or like knowing how to find that out. Because in the cases you mentioned, she wasn't really sure about how, both of them weren't really sure about how it knew, or like how that data was going to someone else to be able to find that out. Yeah. So yeah, that's something I think we'll come back to.
There's a reply in the chat, sorry, while I was...
Oh, perfect, yes. Just try and... keeps showing up that I can see it and then it goes away again, so let me just check. Really do not have a choice, either free or paid. Apps collect data. Of course, they use us.
I think that's how they use it is most important, maybe.
Right, there we go. They retarget with various services. Yeah, that's really interesting. So even if you pay for it, you kind of can't escape it as an option. But yeah, when you say, I'm going to say this again and give you some time to answer, but when you say we don't have a choice, where do you think that kind of comes from? Do you think it comes from the fact that we need the service, or from something else, because you can't opt out of these things? Or yeah, what are you kind of thinking with that? Again, no wrong answers. I'm just really interested. All things, all these things.
Just to chip in there, I think like with the we don't have a choice is that it's just become so much of the norm that that our data is collected and we don't even really know about it a lot of the time.
Yeah.
When it's happening, or if you don't want your data collecting, you've got to put the effort into that. Like you say, you've got to either opt out, or you've got to be careful about what you do in your life and how you live your life, I think, because otherwise the norm is, I think, for it to be taken and sold on. This is what I think. I've got no idea really, but that's what it seems like to me. And I think it's not talked about enough. And I think like a lot of things, people just assume that that's okay.
Yeah, because following on from that, would you know where to go in order to stop any of these things, or would you know what to do if you wanted to try and access the data that's held about you or delete it? Do you know where to start focusing? That's the problem. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can come back to that if that's of interest as well, because I can tell you a bit about what I know in terms of how to do that, but it is very long and complicated at the same time, which is one of the problems. So yeah. Is there anything else in the chat?
Not at the moment.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, feel free to keep chatting there as well. So now I wanted to just talk through a few bits of my research that I thought would be kind of most appropriate for this, and just get your kind of thoughts on them, whether these are things that suspected all along or have come up in what we've talked about so far, or maybe surprise you. So we looked at around 30 different period tracking apps, and we assessed them for kind of their privacy and security, particularly in terms of how accessible the privacy policies were, which I guess everyone knows exist, but in my case too, very, 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 very rarely read them. So yeah, we found that kind of relating to that previous question, that period tracking apps do collect data, and they collect a kind of unique combination of other data compared to other apps. So that can be, and by the nature of these kind of apps, it's more sensitive. So that can be anything to do with kind of, your personal information. So it might be an email that you use to set the account, different aspects of kind of if you filled in a profile for them, and then anything to do with your health. So a lot of them collect things like weight, look for your kind of food and water intake and things like that. But then also reproductive health data around your period and your cycle, and also your sex life. So particularly whether you're having sex or how you're having sex. So yeah, it's that kind of combination that makes it quite unique. And a lot of apps, you were also asked to fill in kind of some kind of thing where they will ask you to say whether you're trying for a baby or you're trying to just track your cycle, know more about it. So they also know why you're using the app in the first place, which I think is really interesting. So yes, in that nature, because of that nature, the nature of that data, it is very sensitive. But not all apps actually collect that kind of data. So there's two kinds of companies that are producing these apps. So there's femtech companies, and these, so femtech is becoming a bit of a buzzword at the moment for companies that have services and products for, well, they say women's health, but kind of anyone with a uterus's health. And then there's kind of like generic app companies that they might also produce like a torch app, or there was one company that produced loads of games apps. So they're using this platform as another kind of period tracking as another app that they can add to their kind of app libraries. And the way that they approach data collection is really different. So femtech companies were much more interested in this kind of more sensitive data. And often that wouldn't necessarily be shared with third parties or anything, because that's something that we also often hear about when it comes to data, is kind of third party sharing. But it is being kind of used by those companies to develop new products, and in some cases to develop new products for other parties. So yeah, kind of to do with, there was one case with kind of contraceptive development, or another company that is using it for a sister company they have, which is a big data lab. So it's kind of like not always clear what that data is being used for. And the generic app companies are much more interested in having another place that they can scrape kind of technical data from. So that might be your kind of course location. So the county that you're in something that they can then kind of give you targeted or more appropriate ads for. So that's kind of, yeah, that's like two quite different uses of data, and they're interested in different kinds of data. So yeah, so this is what I've just said here. So yeah, and any questions on this, we can chat about through this or at the end, so let me know. Oh yeah, so and then the other thing that femtech companies do is they might look for other ways to collect data, and this might be anonymously gathered, so it won't necessarily be personally identifiable to you, but it's still gathered in some ways. So one of those is through community forums that are embedded within a lot of the apps. And what I think is quite interesting about this is they often kind of invite you to share more information, because they kind of present it as a bit of a safe space. And I think in a lot of ways it's like a space where you can talk about periods, and I mean, people talk about all kinds of things on these spaces because it's kind of other people going through it. So they are really, really vital, but it's interesting that that is then also a source of data for the companies. And this is another kind of example of that. So this is app called Eve, and they put kind of polls on their app. And again, this is something that then gets collected by the company themselves. So yes. So a few more findings. Where there have been kind of cases of what I talked about before, kind of third-party sharing, this isn't always done without kind of deliberately, but the fact that it's done in the first place is kind of, I guess, concerning. So in a case of a few different apps, the way that they kind of used a piece of third-party code. So to kind of exist, to make an app, you almost always have to use third-party code of some kind, whether that is to be able to add a Facebook like button into your app, or be able to add like Gmail to Gmail like login and stuff like that. There's always some reason that you might need to borrow some code from somewhere like Facebook in order to provide a particular function to the app. And this is what happens in period tracking apps as well. But there were a case with a few different period trackers, along with other apps, where the way that third-party code was implemented and put into the app meant that it was kind of sharing data without to these third parties without the developer's knowledge. And this is done through this thing called app events. And that's basically, if you pick up your phone and you open your app and you click on different things within the app, all of those things would generate an app event. But if that app event is labeled period started and a date and a time, obviously that becomes a kind of sensitive piece of information, even though a developer would see it as kind of technical, non-personal piece of information. So therefore it's like okay to be shared. Not that, yeah, okay in that it's not personal, so it has different rules kind of attached to it. So yes, so and this happened within a few period trackers, and it has now been kind of fixed, but I guess it's another kind of potential, another previous issue that is kind of has the potential for information to be shared. And kind of more ethical dilemma is to do with data collection and period tracking, is that some of these companies are generating these really massive data sets on menstrual health, on women's health, with some companies like this one called Glow have control of these massive data sets that they can then decide what to do with. And there's kind of questions about whether we can trust companies to do ethical things with that data. For example, there's a company that's not technically a period tracking company, but are using these big data sets to sell back to medical and healthcare professionals as like a source of profit, even though this is kind of crowdsourced data. So there's those kind of ethical questions about who should have control over these data sets, even if they are anonymized, and whether kind of people consent to those uses. And then they're also used to develop products, again, kind of source of profit, but then they're also used in medical research in a lot of cases. And from talking to people within my own research, that's something that people really like a lot of the time, the fact that it could help other people. So some kind of, ethical questions there as well about what feels right. And finally, privacy policies obfuscating things. So by obfuscate, I mean kind of hiding things or making it unclear what's really happening to that data. So an example of this is where it might be, they say things like may or might or generally, which can make the meaning of what's going on really unclear. So if you think that when you do press consent at the bottom of a privacy policy, particularly if it's really long and it's full of legal language, all of those things are kind of ways that the meaning and your understanding of what's happening kind of complicates whether you ever really consent to what's going on, because can you understand it? Is it clear what is really meant by the statements that they're making? So so that's a bit of a kind of deep dive into some of my own research. And then I just really wanted to get your reaction to that and whether it is exactly what you expected. It seems like you had a lot of kind of a lot of suspicions already, but just kind of what your thoughts were.
How long do you think period tracking apps have been going, Laura?
Maybe about since maybe 2014, maybe 20. I know that Clue, one of the big ones, they started in 2016, I think. Yeah, I think so. So maybe, I guess they've got really big in the last maybe 3 or 4 years, but
right.
Maybe 6 or 7.
No, I think it's really interesting, and I think that like you said, the language might maybe generally it can be really confusing, and actually it's something that needs to be as clear as possible, because it's really important that people know what they're doing.
Has anyone ever tried to read one? Have you tried to read a privacy policy? They're so much fun to read.
I think I probably tried to, and then got 2 sentences in, and then been and just
I accept. Leave me alone.
And I think sorry. And I think when you think about like, so it's not just easy for everybody to read a document with like thousands of words in it. Like everyone's got loads of different access requirements. So it can't really be like this one size fits all document anyway, you know, because we're sort of moving into a place where we're wanting things where information needs to be accessible, and so often it isn't. But yeah, I just think that even if you had to read it before you clicked I agree, that wouldn't I don't see how that would work for everybody.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And actually something that we also looked at was you can do this thing where you can basically assess the qualifications you'd need to understand certain documents. So we did that, and almost all of them you needed, I think it was like A levels or above, and like if not, yeah, maybe that was maybe half of them, and then the other half were like a degree or above, you know. So that just does not suit so many people, because like that's just assuming that you can vaguely, like, I don't know, vaguely understand some of the wording in there, rather than like in terms of like other kinds of accessibility at all. And then there was another really interesting piece of research where it basically got like I don't know, some lawyers, some privacy experts, and like people from the general public to like read these privacy policies and say what they understood was happening. And all three of them said completely different things. So even when you have like a mix of people doing it, and people that are supposed to be kind of specialized in this field, like can get completely different meanings from each other. And like, yeah, all the lawyers found different things. And so it's so hard to get actually what is going on within the policies.
I think that's, well, I would assume that was because they are so general.
Yeah.
You know, if they say we may do this, we may do that, someone might then be like, oh, they're going to do this, and then someone's brain might go, oh, they're going to do that.
Yeah.
Black and white, it's not a black and white document, then not everybody's going to get the same out of it, are they? Because it's too general.
Yeah, definitely.
And what happens when part of that policy is amended or changed or updated, or, you know, like, are you then updated immediately on that, or is it easy to change things? Kind of on the down low.
Yeah, I think you're legally supposed to tell people, but again, I think, I don't know, with some of the boundaries of this, so you can say you're telling people because you've sent them an email being like, we're changing our terms and conditions, but is that really telling people? Because people aren't going to engage with that. They're just going to click delete on their inbox, like when it comes into their inbox. So, or I accept to just get through to use the service. So I think like from a legal checkpoint sense, they have informed you, but from a actively, I know what's happening now sense, they haven't. Which I think was where some of the difficulty maybe is.
I haven't used them, so I'm not sure on this, but is there an age access restriction on these apps? Because I'm just thinking, you know, it's like there's so many social and physical barriers to education at A level or above, but equally, you know, if you're 14, or you know, people start the period as young as 8, don't they, sometimes? So, you know, I personally would have liked one of these apps when I was younger, when you're learning about your body and to actually get to know what your body is, before you then are put on contraception, maybe when you're older, and that affects. I would like to know what my body kind of originally was, and an app like this would have been really good. But it might be limited for age.
That's such a good point. That's a really good point. So yeah, I think there's kind of like laws around this. It's like 16 is kind of the age limit, and it's, if you want to be even more protected from the app side, it's 18. But yeah, the reality is there's people way younger than this using it, because as soon as you've got a phone, you know, you can download things. So I think the developers kind of get away with really a lot by kind of assuming that none of their users are under the age of 16 or 18. But the reality is that that's probably not the case. And it's a really good point, like that. Yeah, I think that's a really important point, that it's useful. And just because you know, yeah, you start your period young. So if you have one, so why would you start using an app at 18 when you have a phone from 10 or something? I don't know. And you could just download it. So yes, I don't know if that answered the question, but yeah, really good point. Yeah, okay, cool.
I think that is such a good question, Emily, because like, surely if there is an age restriction on it, but so say it's 16 but you're 13 and you want to use it, surely then you have to make up your date of birth to make it look like you're 16. And then if they are collecting this data, they think they're collecting it about a 16-year-old, but actually they're collecting it about a 13-year-old. And surely that breaks so many like GDPR, like safeguarding laws.
Yeah.
And that I'd never thought about, but that's so crazy.
And it's not
then sharing it to third parties. Sorry.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. And it's not like, it's something they kind of actively don't talk about, because they're kind of in the privacy policies, they might be like, oh, children, we don't collect data of children under this age or whatever, or if you're this age, you have to be this age and above to use the app. But it's not like Facebook, where it's like you have to prove that you're, you know, a certain age. I think it's 13 to access it in the first place. And there's no kind of extra safeguarding of the people that are using it who are younger. So yeah, it's definitely a really like grey area from the developer point of view, I think. Yeah.
And I feel like if the apps were there to just solely help you out and make your life a bit easier, if they were solely there for you, then that wouldn't sort of be, there wouldn't really be any issues around that. But they're being developed not just to kind of help you out, are they? I think. Does that make sense?
Interesting. No, yeah, that's really interesting. So what do you think they're kind of being developed for? And do you think any of that, I guess, what would you want them to be developed for, and what do you think they are being developed for?
I think I'm just really suspicious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and anything that's, yeah, just anything where they're asking you for a lot of information, like, you know, they're asking you about your sex life, or like you say, what we're talking about, why, you know, why do they need to know that, and why can't we just, and why can't this app just be used for you to give me the information that I want to know? Yeah.
And that doesn't feel like it's the case.
Well, I've never used one, but but from reading about it and having different discussions, no, I don't think it does seem like the case.
Okay, yeah, that's super interesting. So leading on from that, do you think what's happening, what I kind of talked about before, is kind of clear to the person who is using the app? Particularly for those of you that have used the app, has that been something that you've known about, or do you ever remember the app being like, by the way, this is how you use your data, or anything like that? And we've got a poll for this one as well, haven't we? Okay, we've got one no. That's very interesting. I don't know if you can see it on my screen as well, can you?
I can't, I can see it on my screen, but I can't vote.
Yeah, that's the same as me.
Oh, someone says yes, someone said
no.
no.
Okay. If you, let me know if you want to chat about about the reasons behind the answer you've given in the chat or anything.
I thought, for me, not so clear. I haven't really used one, but I have downloaded some apps to kind of try and get them out. And I would be all for sharing the information for research purposes. I feel like the research is so needed. But I don't like the idea of the app then selling the information to medical research. I'd rather it be given to them in partnership. I'd quite like it if that medical research was involved in like the process of making the app and what information they needed and things like that. I'd like it to be more of a collaboration rather than a producer and a consumer, I think.
Yeah, that's such a good point. That's like such a necessary distinction, isn't it? Like, and I feel that that's potentially where consent is needed from the side of you as a person using the app, is like what I'm okay with happening and what I'm not. Because there are people that do that. So Clue, one of the kind of most popular period tracking apps, they do kind of involve universities and medical professionals in a more collaborative sense, it seems. So yeah, and then you can read the papers. They've put the papers that have come out of that research and have used the data that they collected within their app on their website. So you can kind of like see the accountability a bit more. Whereas, yes, this other company, that was a IVF company called Selma Techs, does that. And then we've got kind of, Glow, who have that big data lab. So yeah, there's lots of kind of like murky practices, and we need that distinction about what's okay and what's not, from my point of view as a person using it. That's such an important point. Okay, cool. And in terms of so does anyone think that this is clear, as you've kind of answered in the what is it called, the poll? Because I'd be really interested to hear that as well, whether I guess where you feel that has come from.
I don't know who said it, Laura, but maybe perhaps they don't want to
fair play.
Which is cool.
Yeah, it's just nice that you've come. Okay, well, we'll move on to the next one. But yeah, feel free to add anything in the chat. In terms of, thinking about what we've talked about so far, is there anything that you think needs improving here? And if so, what do you think needs to kind of change? And it could be no, it's fine. I'm happy with what's going on, and I just want to use this app and live in peace, so leave me alone. So that's fine too. Just interested again, hearing your thoughts.
I just think more just be for everything to be slightly clearer, or perhaps to have an option saying at the end of these things, that the contracts that you sign, saying, have you understood? Do you have any questions? Like, would you like any more clarity on this? Or perhaps they could start using them. They're called like chatbots that you can you could type in and kind of have your queries cleared up, because it's just reassuring, it would just be more reassuring, I think, to people. Yeah,
that's such a good point. So actually having someone to talk to about this stuff, rather than being like, I don't really know what that means, but I want to use this. So
yeah.
Yeah, that's a great shout. Nice. Yeah, any other thoughts?
I think that they need to, your data shouldn't be shared outside of an app. Put it in that. I mean, I don't know a lot about it, but you put it in that app to use the app. So why then should suddenly
go somewhere else
have it when that you don't know who's got it? And I'm not an expert, but assuming they buy that data, whoever wants it, and why should an app get monetary value from your information when you haven't necessarily agreed to give that out? Does that even happen? Or have I made that up?
It's I think it's less that happens less with the kind of sensitive information, but some of the kind of technical information that we talked about earlier, like that can definitely go to places. And a lot of the third parties that will then collect different kinds of technical information, which most, like under law, doesn't count as personal in a lot of senses, although it can become personal because it can reveal things about you. But so a lot of the companies don't see that as kind of personal information, so it's treated differently, but that can still be sold and go to places, or because data has a kind of monetary value. It becomes kind of, if a third party is embedded in the app and then getting data, they're kind of generating some kind of revenue, if that makes sense. I think there was someone in the chat.
Yeah, Lucy's put something in the chat.
I think they should definitely be opened to younger people. Yes, yeah, definitely. And as we said earlier, you know, like just being able to understand it better when everything feels really confusing and you are trying to learn what's going on.
I do totally get
that definitely needs to change.
I do totally get Emily's point as well there about kind of the sharing it for medical purposes, and you know, I'm all for particular sort of like menstrual health, again, something that's not spoken about enough, and again, like if we can sort of help with that, then that's great, but please please let me know that is happening.
Because actually that could be a positive thing, you know, a tick box that says we're in partnership with this university that's doing this research, for example. Do you opt for them to have your information, and by them having your information we can do studies into mental health or endometriosis, whatever. And you would actually, that would make you feel great. Like I give blood a lot, and the best thing about giving blood is when you get the text at the end that says your blood is now in this hospital, and you're like, oh, I've helped that.
That's
and that's
cool. Yeah,
you feel good. So yeah, if it was clearer like that and turned into a positive, and you've got the choice of yes, you can have that information, or no, you can't, and it's that clear, then there's nothing wrong with that. But it just feels like that's not clear enough.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. Because I think within medical and university research in the UK, for example, you have to go through so many steps to make sure that someone is kind of, you know, okay with what's going on, and that's kind of really missing from this. But if they put that in, and then I think a lot of people would, and it's come up a lot in my research, that people are really like up for this, but it's just, you feel like you don't even know that that's going on, let alone kind of consent to it. Such a good point.
Can I ask, when you know on that picture there and it says link your moods to your cycle, would that be like you tell the app what sort of a mood you're in that day, or it wouldn't be like the app telling you like you're gonna be in a bad mood today?
Yeah,
because then I feel like if the app said to me, oh, historically you're miserable today, I'd be like, all right, I'll just be miserable then.
Yeah, I think they then so you give that information and it tries to like, it will give you some kind of statistics on generally you feel like on this day you tend to feel a bit rubbish. So yeah, it kind of does a bit of both, but yeah, generally it's you telling the app I feel crap today, so or happy or sensitive, and then it does kind of give you insights into when you are maybe likely to feel like that again, or like how many times a month or how many times a cycle you felt like that. This particular one,
I think that, and I'm always amazed by how effective they are. I'm like, I remember initially someone saying it and I was like, wow, that's amazing. Like, you know, because so many friends and people that I spoke to that have problems with like issue after issue with different types of contraception. I think it's like, it's revolutionary, really.
To have another option,
to not have to do something so invasive like all the other options seem to be, you know.
And I think that's a really good point, and kind of what we've spoken about in terms of research as well. I think from kind of my own looking into this subject, I think a lot of what these apps and similar companies that femtech companies do is kind of because there's this lack of research in a lot of these areas, and there's not a lot of services. There's, you know, we've only just seen in the last few years like other options come about, but versus like tampons and pads and things, they are kind of like filling a bit of a void in this lack of services and research and healthcare provision, and you know, and that's kind of one of the real benefits of them. But the question is whether this should be their role, or it should be the role of kind of the NHS, or, you know, I mean, the US systems seems really complicated and a bit rubbish, but I don't know, should that be something that that they do, or so where should this kind of service be coming from? And it's kind of, I don't really know the answer to that, but it's just something I think is quite interesting to think about with this. So I think finally, I wanted to show you bits of some privacy policies from apps that we've studied, and see if you think there are any words in there that you think need changing, or that can also be action. So do you think what the company is doing is right, or do you think something should be changed in that respect? And just see if you think that these are clear and how they could be better. So let me just see if I can, there we go. So the first one of those is, we may share certain personal data, which is, just a sentence that we've pulled from, a full sentence, so we pulled from one app privacy policy. And feel free to chat in the chat or come off mute.
It's just not clear at all, is it? It's like, are you or aren't you?
Yeah.
And which part of it are you?
Yeah. What is the certain personal data, please?
Seems like a completely it doesn't serve a purpose as a sentence, does it? Because you get nothing from it. They might or they might not. And certain personal data, what certain personal data, what are you classing as personal data? Would you class the same as what I would class as personal data? Like, what's the point in having that in?
It feels like it's there to just tick a box, doesn't it? It feels like it's there to just go, right, we've got to say something vague about what we're going to do with this. So we'll say that, and then boom, we've like legally covered. It feels like that.
Yeah, definitely. So I think in this case, it was an email address and maybe a name. And then it would also be kind of some of the technical data. So it was so each device you have has a unique ID. So it was that and some course location. So with that in mind, how do you think that could be better as a sentence? That was a big question, but see what you think.
I mean, I think something like sort of for this reason, we will share this data with this organization. Maybe.
Okay. No, that sounds good. So the next one is, we will not delete the posts or comments you've written and shared publicly, including on social media or in any of the community or chat features. So this goes back to what I was saying before about some of the apps having kind of community or forum spaces where people can talk. Any thoughts on that?
I think it's quite scary that you can just write something and it'll just be there forever.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think that's clear. Sorry, go on.
No, sorry. I was just going to say, in terms of the sentence, I know what it's telling me, whereas the other one I didn't. So, in a way, I prefer that kind of clarity. Trying to tell me.
That's a really good distinction, actually. Like, at least you know what's going on here.
I agree. It's definitely a better sentence.
If you write, this might be irrelevant, but if you write a comment and you delete it, does that mean that they still have it in their like cloud scenario? Like, it's not the community, but they still have it, which seems really like invasive. I've written this comment and now I don't want it anymore. I mean, I don't know whether that is the case. If you delete it, do they still have it? But from this, it's for me, it's saying we're going to just keep everything you ever input into this, whether you delete it or not. That's so scary, because sometimes maybe you've put in that you're having an anxious day or an angry day or whatever, and then you go on and have a little rant, and then you think, oh, I said that. It's a bit scary that they still have kind of a record of that, and that's what I don't like about it.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I don't know the answer to that as well. I don't know if that is something that they do or not, and I'm not sure if I'm sure you must have the ability to delete the post, but yeah, I don't know the specifics of that. I feel like after a while, quite, because I've been looking through all of these apps, sometimes the features do start to blur into one. So I'm wondering if yeah, it's a good point, but I'm not sure on whether that happens or not. So yeah, we've got about 5 minutes. So we may share only location or other automatic collected device information. So that was kind of like what I was talking about before, like app events, that unique ID, along with a few kind of other things, like some apps collect cookies and things like that. Any kind of thoughts? And then I'll go after this, we can just go into questions.
I don't really understand that sentence.
Yeah.
I suppose it, I don't like the word "me" again.
Yes.
So are you going to do it or you're not? And then location, yeah, okay, fine, and understand that. But other automatically collected device information, what is that?
Yeah.
What does that include? And if it's what you say, like the app events where they can tell what you've clicked on, that's actually a lot of information, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's making it sound like it's just, oh, it's only a tiny little bit, nothing, like a little sprinkling of information.
Yeah.
But it could be massive. It could be like a lot of information, which
yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the thing, exactly what I would say. So like that only makes it sound like, it's okay, it's only a little bit, but actually, and then just that I assumed understanding of what automatic collected device information is. Things.
It's quite deceiving as well, because it says only location, so you believe that you're going to be told exactly what it is, because it's only this, and then it says other, so which is unlimited, so it kind of gives you that false sense of security. I think when you're reading that, you might, depending on how you read it, you might think, oh, it's only a location of this other thing, when actually it's multiple.
Yeah, that's so true. They're like opposites of each other, really, aren't they? So how can you have only and other together? Yeah, that's such a good point. Okay, well, just because we've only got a few minutes left, I just wanted to put these out there as well, in case it's useful to anyone present today. So if you did want to use an app, the ones that we've kind of seen have tested best in the research that I've done are Drip, which is an open source, really amazing period tracker app, which has kind of an inclusive color scheme and is based on some really good science in terms of its algorithm as well, but they don't collect any data whatsoever. So yeah, they are great, but you can only use it on Android. So yeah, so anyone with an Android phone who wants to use a period tracker other than the one they're using, I would recommend that. And then otherwise, Clue was the app that we tested that came out the best in terms of how they approach data and the sensitivity of data. And they are also the people I was talking about before who, do that kind of collaborative medical research. So yeah, I would definitely say that they would be the kind of favoured app from the research I've done in terms of what's best to use. And then finally, just got time for a couple of minutes for any questions that anyone had on what we've tested about, or something completely different to do with period tracking.
Are they sort of UK based apps, or are they global, or what?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Almost, yeah, I mean, really, they seem really spread out. So to be fair, both the two I've just shown are based in Germany randomly. But otherwise it's a real kind of, it's a really global thing. I'd say quite a few of them do come from Hong Kong and China, and a couple from Taiwan. So kind of, I don't know, there's kind of like a bit of a kind of sprinkling there, and then a bit kind of in the US and things. But otherwise it's really global.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Maybe we've got time for one more.
I'll ask one. Laura,
Yeah.
do you use a period tracking app?
I do and I don't. I did for a bit. I think it was a bit of a hard one for me because I did for a bit, but I'm on contraception, so it's not hugely, it doesn't really tell me anything. Was my first issue, and also I can't really like extract the research side of things. As soon as I'm on it, I'm like thinking it's not like a personal thing for me anymore. It's just the like, oh, let me like deep dive into what this is trying to tell me. Or, you know, I just like overthink then every part of it. So I did for a bit.
That's what I thought. Like,
yeah,
just know them so well inside out that your brain will just automatically be like, oh, let's put that in our research.
Yeah, exactly.
What you need for. But yeah, just
yeah. So I did for a bit because I was like, oh, maybe I should actually see what it's like. And then I was like, oh, it can't really tell me anything. And then it was like, oh, and also I just can't stop thinking about the fact that like this is really interesting. So yeah. So no, not anymore.
Oh, and thanks for the recommendations as well. I think I'm going to check them
No
out.
worries. Yeah, a drip is so cool, and it's made by this kind of collective called Bloody Health, and they're just I just think that they are awesome. So 10 out of 10 recommend.
Nice.
Cool. All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
I'll stop showing my screen. Yeah, thank you everyone for your contributions and for listening. And if you had any other questions, my email's kind of you can contact these guys and they'll pass it on, I'm sure.
I'll put it in the chat. Do you want me to put it in the chat?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. There we go. Right. To everybody.
No problem.
Is it Laura.Shipp?
Mm-hmm.
And then what is it?
At rhul.ac.uk.
At rhul.ac.uk. Oh, someone's just said, what's your view on menstrual cups?
Oh, interesting. I really like them. I know, so I'm really suspicious of like, I don't know where to start with this question. I have so many thoughts. I personally really like them. I tried 3 until I found one I actually like could use. But I know that there is some concerns going around about them at the moment. And I don't know how I feel about those because I think that the big thank you for coming.
Hi, Emily.
The big corporations have quite a lot to gain from like making sure that these things don't catch on. So I'm like worried about where this information is coming from, but I also think it's probably under researched. So who knows if they're bad or not, but I personally like them and think if like in terms of cup versus tampon, it's like so much more like cool because you just like there for ages and you don't have to worry about it. So pros and cons. And yeah,
what did you say the recent information that had come out about was? Sorry,
that scares us because me and Lydia are recent converters.
Oh, sorry. Yes, no, I think it's fine. I think it's fine. There's basically there's been a couple of news stories that I don't know if I'm just like super plugged into this space, so whenever it comes out I'm like, oh, and I think it came out where there was a news article where it suggested that they could cause prolapse, which is like where things kind of fall down where they shouldn't, basically, like organs around. And yeah, and there's similar things have come out with period pants, where there's like thoughts about there being like chemicals in there that are dangerous. But basically, who knows if that's really the case, or actually there's been like an always person has been like researcher has been told to like find something wrong with these products wherever possible. So I'm like, I don't really know where I sit on those kind of things. But also, so like what is in period products is really underregulated because it's not seen as ingested, even though it might go into your body, because it doesn't go through your digestive tract. There's like different rules about what can be in them, and you don't have to state what is in them. So there's like, there could be concerns with the products that are on the market that are popular anyway. So it's a bit of that's really convoluted, but a bit of a grey area, I think, generally, like where to get good information about that. But I do love them.
We have had a question. It's what specific cup would you recommend? But I would say that our next talk next week, same time, is all about reusable products.
Oh, amazing.
So, maybe, I mean, Laura, obviously you can answer the question now.
Yeah.
Come along to the next one, and Stacey is going to talk about reusable products next week. But
oh wow!
Is there any cups that you do recommend?
So I use an Intamina cup, and I have really liked that. And you can buy it in Sainsbury's, which I thought was really cool. But yeah, I think there's a really cool website called Put a Cup in It as well, which you can like do a quiz to find out what you kind of want from it. Honestly, amazing. It's so cool. And they've got like thousands on there. So if you want to do that, I would probably suggest, because I think with a lot of these things, everyone's so different. So it's good. Like I tried the same one as a friend and it was horrible. So for me, so that's just like personal experience. But yeah, so I think it's just like finding something that works for you, and the quiz is a really good way of doing that.
Yeah, I bought, because I'm 30, and Moon Cup is over 30.
Yeah.
Had a baby, or under 30, not had a baby.
Like, how are those two? Yeah.
I bought over 30 because I am over 30, and that just didn't work out for me. So then I bought,
yes,
I think it's Organic Cup.
Oh, nice.
There's differences is had a baby, not had a baby.
Yeah, which makes way more sense, doesn't it? Because I did exactly the same thing. Because I had quite a heavy period, and it said heavy flow, use this bigger size, and then I couldn't get it out, and then I was like panicking and like just having a terrible. And obviously, I think that makes it harder to then get out. So then, yeah,
absolutely. I was like,
very vague.
I'm gonna have to go to A&E.
Yeah,
to waste NHS's time by being like,
I was just stuck. It's stuck. Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So now I use a starter cup now, the Intermina starter cup, and that's like glorious. So much happier.
Well, thanks so much, Laura. That's been so interesting.
And no worries. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for joining our talk today. If you want to talk to Laura Shipp and find out more about period tracking apps, you can email her laura.shipp with 2 P's at rhul.ac.uk. And to find out more about the Warren's Know Your Flow campaign, you can follow us on socials. That's the Warren Youth Project on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. And if you're a young person aged 16 to 25 and you want to get involved with our period campaign, you can email l@thewarren.org. See you next time.